Good evening and welcome. This is a meeting of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Halton District School Board for Tuesday, December the 5th, 2023. In accordance with Ontario Regulation 463-97 and guidelines effective February the 1st, 2021, HDSB promotes community engagement and participation by having processes in place for members of the public to ask questions. A Google form was attached to the agenda, distributed in advance of the meeting, and is also posted on the HDSB SEAC website page. Questions posed during live stream meetings of SEAC may be answered during the meeting, particularly those related to SEAC, to agenda items, or at the following meeting at the discretion of the chair. For efficiency, multiple questions received that are similar in nature may be grouped together at the discretion of the chair and/or vice chair. Questions will not be attributed. Notation will be made that multiple people ask the same question. Any questions that contain hateful or discriminatory language will not be considered. So first we'll start with a roll call to record who's in attendance. Can you please answer yes or present?
Naveed Ahmed. Carol Baxter.
Present. Good evening.
Joanna Oliver. Xin-Yi Zhang.
Present.
Kate Lambacher.
Present.
Sarika Kanithi. Alison Brindle.
Present.
Diane Vandenbosch. Nadina Torek.
Present.
Angel Zuzik. Evelyn Bursey.
Present. Also, Angel Zuzik is the alternate for CLNH, so she doesn't attend regularly.
Melissa Dockeray.
Present.
Sarah Lansley.
I think she sent the blitz.
Oh, right, she did. Sophia Siddiqui. Kathy Turner.
Present.
Erin Sproul. Jennifer Laguerre.
Jennifer actually has COVID. This is Amanda Winch. I'm the alternate, so I am for her today.
Perfect, thank you. Kaisa Klassen. Katie Schleifer, present, and Melissa Sommer. Colette Ruddock.
Good evening.
And Conan Spruin.
Good evening.
And just Marta.
Good evening.
Great, thank you very much. We have quorum. So now we're going to begin by honouring the land. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaran, the Haudenosaunee and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honour and respect the four directions, land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walk before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. So first of all, we're going to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Everybody should have that. Are there any modifications or amendments that need to be made? If you'd like to either raise your hand or put something in the chat, that would be great. Okay, none being seen.
Would anyone like to move a motion to approve the agenda?
Amanda, I'll approve it.
Thank you. Would anyone like to second this motion? Oh, Kaisa, thank you.
Sorry, I can.
Okay, Catherine will take you on something else. We've got Kaiser at the moment for just a second. Is there any opposition to the agenda as it stands? If you oppose the agenda, please could you indicate that now, either by raising your hand or indicating in the chat. Okay, no opposition seen. The agenda is approved unanimously. Next, we have the approval of our November the 7th, 2023 meeting minutes. Are there any errors or omissions that people want to bring to our attention?
Okay, none being seen. Would anyone like to move a motion to approve the minutes?
I can do that. Kathy.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Would anyone like to second the motion? Melissa, great, thank you.
Is there any opposition to the minutes as recorded? If so, could you indicate so now? Okay, no opposition being seen. The November 7th meeting minutes are approved unanimously. So now we're going to get on to our action items, and I'm very pleased to be able to welcome Dean Barnes, the Superintendent of Student Wellbeing, and Michelle Bates, our mental health lead, to provide us with a presentation on the work that's being done to support student mental health and wellbeing.
Thank you so much, Allison, and to the rest of the committee. We very much appreciate this opportunity to be able to come together and talk with all of you and share some important survey findings. Dean is listening in. He's currently in transit, so I think we'd all like him to pay attention to the road, and so he's just going to be listening in. I'd also like to introduce our research collaborator partner, Maria Glisick, and so together, Maria and I will be sharing information related to this evening. So what I'll do is, if it's all right, I'll just move into presentation mode, and we can start with information that we have planned for this evening. So just bear with me as I move to moving to the right slide. I'm so sorry, everyone. So we just want to situate tonight. We know that all of you are familiar with the multi-year strategic plan, and in particular, mental health and well-being being one of these 5 interrelated areas of our MYP. You may also be familiar with the 2020 to 2024 Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Plan. It has 3 areas, and it has priorities listed under each area. This is available publicly on the board's website. We also wanted to share some foundational knowledge or foundational frameworks that inform our work when we think about mental health and well-being. So in particular, we know that mental health and well-being, or we understand mental health and well-being to be important for every individual, every child, every youth, every adult. On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see a pyramid, and this is referred to as a tiered approach. And so when we think about our mental health strategy and the work that we're doing, we're aware that some of our efforts and energies relate to all students. Some of our efforts and energies relate to some, and then there will also be initiatives and learning and so on related to a few students. On the right-hand side of your screen, you see a bit of a different picture, and this really relates to our visual graphic. This relates to what's referred to as the continuum, the dual continuum of mental health. So we recognize and know that mental health and well-being is fluid, and all of us move along the continuum. Ideally, most of us are situated for the majority of our time in a place of feeling healthy with some stress or manageable stress. Sometimes, however, we find ourselves in a place where we are struggling, where things feel more burdensome, and we're not able to have that same level of well-being, enjoyment, and thriving that we all aim to and want to have. And then as well, we also know that sometimes it happens that we move into a place of crisis. And when we look at this particular graphic, you'll see that correlated are a variety of resources and supports. So the idea is that when we're in that ideal state of healthy and stress, this is when we engage in self-care, well-being, and social support. When we find ourselves and our students in a place of struggling, this is where we look to community or additional resources, both within the board and external to the board. And then finally, for those unfortunate circumstances, when we or our students are experiencing crisis, we look to our emergency and urgent services, again, both within the board and external to the board. Available on the board's website is also this graphic, which it refers to the circle of support. And essentially, it's taking these 3 particular tiered approaches, situating families, students, and their teacher at the center of all the work and all the understanding. So we recognize and believe that every student, together with their parent, guardian, and their classroom teacher, are at the center of that circle of support. And if things are needed to be expanded upon and brought in for a variety of reasons, then there are these additional resources that we look to in terms of informing what's happening at that classroom level, and sometimes even at a school level. So I had mentioned just a little bit ago about one of our strands in the mental health strategy, which is this 3rd area, mental health support and care. These 3 priorities are listed in our strategy, and the 2 priorities that are bolded relate to the research that we engaged with last year, and which Maria is going to walk us through the study results. So I'll just as before I turn it over to Maria, I want to extend heartfelt appreciation to a number of parents who 2 years ago engaged in focus groups with us, and that has helped inform the creation of this more formalized survey. And so our heartfelt gratitude to all the parents who trusted us to listen in relation to how we're being helpful and how we could be more helpful when they're students in terms of mental health and well-being. So over to you, Maria, and I'll move the slides ahead as you need.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Michelle. So in the next several slides, you'll have a chance to see the results of the parent survey and the student survey. And both surveys were conducted in May 2023. The intention of the parent survey was to really find out whether parents feel meaningfully engaged and meaningfully listened to when it comes to just knowing about supports that are available for their children's mental health and well-being, as well as when they communicate with school staff, what are their experiences with regards to that communication and relationship building. So we had about 1,700 parents who actually responded to the survey. Some of them were from elementary, others were from secondary school. And some of the highlights that we wanted to present tonight are in the next several slides. So we asked parents if they're aware that there are supports available for their children when it comes to mental health and well-being. And as you can see from the graph on the left, about 70% of parents are aware of the availability of supports, and about 30% of parents are not. That looks just a little bit different from elementary versus secondary. As you can see, 78% of elementary parents are aware of the available supports, and about 68% of secondary parents expressed that they are aware of the supports. We also asked parents if they needed to contact anyone about their children's mental health and well-being, who would that person be? And they were able to select multiple responses. And it's not surprising that parents would, the majority of parents would go to teachers, about 70%, about 30% of parents said that they go to school administrators, and about 20% of parents expressed that they go to CERTs. And then you can see they go to CYC, social workers, and other school staff. We also ask about how comfortable they are reaching out to school staff with regards to their children's mental health and well-being. And about 75% of parents feel either comfortable or very comfortable reaching out for that help. But unfortunately, we do have about 25% of parents who've expressed that they are either very uncomfortable or uncomfortable when it comes to seeking out help for their children's mental health and well-being. We also ask parents who have actually reached out for help and communicated with school staff to tell us about their feelings when it comes to that relationship and interaction with school staff. You can see that we've asked parents if they felt valued and recognized for knowing what's best for their child, whether they felt that the plans supported their children, and whether the staff were open to parents' or guardians' ideas and feedback, and whether parents felt hopeful that their child would feel better. As you can see from these graphs, between 70 to 80% of parents express that they agree or strongly agree with these statements. And then we have between 20 and 30% of parents who did not have positive experiences and who expressed that they either strongly disagreed or disagreed with the offered statements. In addition to this, we've asked parents to describe their overall experiences when interacting with school staff regarding their children's mental health and well-being. The situation is similar when it comes to, first I need to say that parents were asked whether staff asked about the goals that were important to the parent and the child, whether staff shared information that parents felt were supportive of their child, whether staff created a positive and welcoming environment, and whether they listened to the parents' concerns and asked about strategies that the parent would suggest using. Again, we have about 70 to 80% of parents who felt that their voice was heard and that the environment was positive. So they agreed or strongly agreed with the offered statements. And then we have about 20 to 30% of parents who have not had very positive experiences. So they've expressed disagreement or strong disagreement with the offered statements. Unfortunately, we were not able to identify who exactly these parents are, but the fact that we know that they exist in the system does call for further action and perhaps discussion. We also ask parents what would increase their comfort levels when it comes to reaching out for help regarding their children's mental health and well-being, and they've identified some of the factors such as communication, information sessions, and then they also identified empathy and compassion expressed by school staff when it comes to student mental health. We also asked parents to provide any additional comments or suggestions, and about 15% of them provided comments and suggestions, and the majority of the comments were structured around education as well as improved communication, support for students and parents, and community building. I'm not going to read every single item on the slides because I'm cognizant of the time, and I would like to also present some of the findings of the student survey. But you will have, so yes, this is comments regarding families, again, education, communications, and community building, and inviting parents to schools, inviting them to be partners in sharing information and resources. Now we'll just go to touch upon some highlights from the student survey. So students were mostly asked about their awareness of the resources that exist, as well as how they use the resources and what resources would actually increase their knowledge and awareness of mental health and well-being. We had about 1,700 grade 7 to 12 students from 40 different schools, and the samples were selected in such a way that we had every grade and every school represented in the sample. So in addition to the questions about mental health and well-being resources, students were also asked whether they received services from social workers, CYCs, and psych mental health workers. And if they've received these services, they were then asked about the relationships that they've developed with their workers. So we had about 60% of elementary and 40% of secondary students who responded to the survey. And so we asked students some of the same parents that we, ask students the same questions that we ask parents. So if they needed help with their mental health and well-being, 73% of students said that they would know where to go for help, and 27% of students said that they wouldn't. We also asked students if anyone has suggested that they see someone for their mental health and well-being needs, and we have about 33% of students who said yes. And then we've also asked students if they actually did go ahead and saw someone for their mental health and well-being matters, and we had 26% of students who had said yes. We've also asked students what would help when it comes to increasing their awareness and changing comfort level when asking or receiving help. And as you can see, students, we've offered a lot of different options, but this is some of the top rated options. So emails that would come from school or the board, as well as mental health and well-being information that's shared by school staff, would either somewhat or help. They've identified it would either somewhat or help a lot when it comes to increased awareness and comfort and safety when seeking help. If we can go to the next slide. So we've asked students who they actually saw if they needed help with their mental health and well-being. And about half of the students identified others. Some of these others were people who were perhaps outside of their school community, but some of them were actually inside of the school community, such as social workers, CYCs, and then they've also identified family members, workers from ROC, etc. 36% of students went to their friends, about 33% went to their family doctors, 30% went to their teachers, and the same or similar percentage went to guidance counselors. And it's interesting to know that 16% of students identified going to their certs. Students also were asked to provide additional comments and suggestions, and as you can see, the list is pretty long. They've also identified education, relationship building, opportunities to receive help and counseling when needed, and opportunities to also select and build relationship with the people who they are receiving help from. They've also identified teacher education and helping teachers understand how to best respond to students' needs. Being cognizant of time, we went kind of quickly through the slides, but if you have any technical questions or anything that has to do with the survey, we'd be happy to address those.
Are there any questions at this time? Catherine.
Hi, so my question is, because I'm trying to get, I guess, personal, so then I can also let others know, but because I know many are in the same boat, trying to get support, like social psychotherapy support for my child. And then we're finding it quite difficult because it's like months like waitlist on private. How does it work within the school board? Like, do they come and visit? Like, how does it work? Because I know it's different. I don't know how it's in Peel. I know how it's in Peel because that's where I work. But for Halton, because I want to get my son into something sooner than later because we're on 3 months wait list. So, and I can tell, I know other families are experiencing it too, like friends and stuff. So I just was curious.
Yeah, Michelle, did you want to answer? You're on mute, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Allison. I appreciate that. I'm not asking you to divulge any further information, Catherine, so I'll speak in general terms. So depending on the age of the child, so if a child is, or a student is between the ages of kindergarten and grade 8, a parent can request the help of one of our school-based mental health professionals through the principal or through the classroom teacher, which then often goes to an SRT, school resource team meeting. When students are in grades 9 through 12, students can refer directly for social work service or through mental health psychology services. Just today, we went live on the board's website under both the parent and the student section, providing information about the services that our department, the student wellbeing department, provides. So you'll see on our website information about our disciplines and individual and group work and how to make a request for that help. I'll add, Catherine, that we do not have a wait list, and part of our services are designed, they're evidence informed, and they're designed to be brief. So sometimes we provide a bridge of skill building and relief if more intensive supports are indicated, we can provide that important bridging.
Thank you. And I share everything about my kids because I think it's so important for others to hear about it so that they know they're not alone. My middle one just found he has autism. He's grade 7 and he has anxiety and just ADHD. So there's just a lot of stuff that's combined and socially. So I was trying to find something that can help him, but I'll call the school tomorrow and get that working because I'd rather him get help now than later. And I know a lot of families are feeling the same as I do. So, okay, thank you so much.
I have a question. In your survey, obviously that, well, I'm presuming it went out to all students or a section of all students. Did you have any indication on there as to whether students were on IEPs? I just wondered what proportion of those students that were struggling or parents who didn't know where to go were those related to the community that we're here to advocate for?
So we actually asked parents if their children had an IEP, and I will go and look at the findings, and I'll give you those results as soon as I find out.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any other questions? No? Well, as always, it's great to hear about the work that's being done. It is concerning that, we've got, still a third about that of our student, 25% to a third of our student population who are struggling. It's a different world out there and a different world in our schools than it was for us potentially as who are now parents. But we're grateful for the work that you do in order to support them as well as we're able to. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, so 23% of the parents who responded to the survey indicated their child had an IEP, but we don't know how many of those kids that said that they needed support or whose parents said that they had concerns or whatever related to that 23% yet.
Yeah, we need to cover the data.
Yeah.
That's
right?
correct. We haven't disaggregated,
Yep.
but that is something that we could possibly look into.
That would be wonderful. I think, for this group, we do recognize that with our children's unique needs come a lot of emotional struggles. And so any data that we can get that kind of indicates what additional supports might be needed for our unique children, I think might be helpful for everybody. Great. All right, so Dean, you have made it back to a non-transportation situation.
Yeah, thanks. I was at another meeting, so I was able to listen in. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, once again, thank you very much for your team, and any further data you can bring back would really be helpful in helping us advocate for mental health services for our students. Thank you. Great, and have a good evening. So now it's my turn as the Executive Director of the Centre for Diverse Learners. We try to take the opportunity to provide some information about the different organisations that we represent and give you some information about what you do, what we all do. And so it's my turn. And I'm going to be providing you with a presentation on our mission and vision and the work that we undertake as an organisation. So bear with me. I think I've got the mute switched off, so we're not going to get any kind of feedback. And I will now try and share my screen. And I think you can see my screen. So I'm going to start. First of all, I am the Executive Director of the Centre for Diverse Learners. I've been with the organisation for about 9 years now. I joined as a volunteer on the board when my daughter was first diagnosed with learning disabilities. At that time, we were the Learning Disabilities Association of Halton. We then grew to be Halton Hamilton. And then last year, around about this time, we changed our name to become the Centre for Diverse Learners. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and the reason behind that. But really what this presentation is about is supporting and changing the narrative for our diverse learners. And that is a big part of our work at the moment. So our mission and vision at CDL, the Centre for Diverse Learners, is to support and empower diverse learners through advocacy, education and services. And our vision is a world where neurodiverse individuals can achieve success, whatever that form that takes for them, and thrive in an accepting world. And unfortunately, we have a way to go. So that is why we have our organisation and other organisations that work with neurodivergent students. So as the Centre for Diverse Learners, we're based here in Halton. We're on Guelph Line in Burlington, and we put out sites in different areas of the community, and we serve under our new name a broader range of individuals, rather than being restricted just to learning disabilities, both diagnosed and not. We also recognized very clearly as parents and individuals who are neurodiverse that learning disabilities don't just come on their own. They come with ADHD, they come with level 1 autism, they come with mental health issues. And so we wanted to make sure that our organization truly served the needs of our clients, whatever they may be. And so anybody who fits or suspects they fit into that spectrum or worries that they fit into that spectrum, we're there for you. And I want to make that clear. So you do not need a diagnosis to come and get our support. So I'm going to talk about learning disabilities, ADHD. I'm not going to talk too much about autism because I know that Autism Ontario is going to come and speak to us. And I know that they have some wonderful information too. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about learning disabilities, what they are, what they aren't, and then we'll go into ADHD. So learning disabilities are a lifelong disability. And I can tell you as somebody from the UK that they have a very different meaning here in Canada and North America than they do in the UK. In the UK, a learning disability is an intellectual disability, whereas in Canada, that is not the case. And to be diagnosed with a learning disability in Ontario, the diagnosis is changing slightly, but it used to be very clear that you had to have average to gifted intelligence. So many of the students, or several of the students that Kate spoke about last week or last month, we will also see, because they might have a learning disability or ADHD or other diagnoses that go along with giftedness that are impacting their learning. So we're dealing with students who can learn if we know how to teach them. And what we really see, and what's usually the first sign of a problem or a struggle, is academic underachievement inconsistent with intellectual abilities. And that's generally what the diagnosis is. A whole range of tests are done to determine that the child is of average to gifted intelligence, but they have a spiky profile. Some areas are really challenging and some areas may be great. And so in the classroom, we're seeing that they're struggling. But that is not the only diagnosis of a learning disability. The other one is that you may see everything is normal. This is where my daughter fits. Everything is normal, gets great grades, except that she works 5 hours a night on her homework and all weekends. And she can only get those grades by putting in an inordinate amount of effort, which is disproportionate to her peers. And so is struggling to do the work, can do it, but needs to put in a lot of effort. And both of those are definitions that are covered under the diagnosis of a learning disability. So the child doesn't have to be struggling. They can be achieving, but just having to put in a vast amount of work. And obviously it's not due to other causes. So it's not due to lack of motivation or laziness or anything else that's sometimes thrown at our kids. There are many different types of learning disabilities. The most common one is dyslexia, but it affects 7 main processing areas in the brain. And they are neurological conditions. So I'm not going to read this to you. You're all capable of reading, and I'm going to send these out, so you're going to have them. But it affects pretty much everything. Language, visual spatial, how you sit, how you orient in the world, your processing speed, how quickly you can take in information, your memory, your planning, your organization. It can affect pretty much everything in a classroom. And that's where we have a problem. The other ones that I mentioned, obviously we have ADHD, level 1 autism, and mental health disorders. And I'm got a video here that I'm going to play to you because we still hear the question, does ADHD even exist? Okay, and we get a lot of pushback where our kids with ADHD, a neurological disorder, are made to feel different and lazy and can find that extremely troubling. So I'm going to try and play this video and I hope the sound works.
I asked people with ADHD one question. What do you want the world to know about your ADHD?
This is what I want you to know about my ADHD. It takes me a lot of hard work to get my work turned in on time. I'm very smart, but my grades drop sometimes.
If I could actually sit down and start my homework, I would. But many days I just can't, and struggling with something so seemingly simple tends to make me feel very frustrated or even stupid.
I'd like the world to know that there are people like me out there who get good grades, rarely get in trouble, and yet can and do have ADHD and struggle with the symptoms that come along with it.
Just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it isn't there.
My ADHD affects every aspect of my life, from sleep to school to work, all of my relationships, and I have to tailor my entire life around having it.
It doesn't always look the same. I was only diagnosed at 25 because I have the inattentive type.
I'm basically hyperactive. I was diagnosed at the age of 7.
I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was 38, so I always thought you need to be hyperactive to have it.
I've filmed this video too many times now, and I can't get it right, and it's really stressing me out now.
I try really hard, and it hurts when people act like I'm not trying as hard as I am.
But the worst part is when my symptoms aren't taken as symptoms, they're taken as behaviors, done intentionally to upset someone or consider that I don't care, and that's never been the case.
Whenever you think that I intentionally tried to hurt you, I didn't. I probably just screwed up.
I'm at least as frustrated as you, and probably even more.
When I say I forgot, I'm not lazy. I'm not just trying to make an excuse. It's a real struggle, and I'm probably even more pissed off at myself than you are at me.
There is a giant flipping war going on inside this head. I really am trying.
When I use my accommodations, it's not me trying to take the easy way out. All I'm trying to do is level the playing field so that you and I have a lot more even chance of success.
When you see me arranging my pens and pencils according to color, it's because my brain is trying to compensate for the chaos within.
I squeeze some Play-Doh in my hand and help me concentrate on what I'm doing.
I moved to a special spot in the classroom for tests because I can't block out noises and distractions like you can.
While I'm staring off into space, it doesn't mean I'm stupid.
It doesn't mean that I'm not listening to you.
Normally it means that you've triggered a really interesting thought which my impulsive brain can't help but chase.
Having ADHD is like having a billion trampolines in your head, each representing a thought, and your brain just jumping off each and every one every second.
I don't think about ADHD as a disorder. I think it's more of a different way of thinking.
I know my brain works differently, but ADHD can give me an advantage with what I'm doing.
It may take me a while to come to a solution. It tends to be really different than everybody else's, and a lot of people appreciate that.
I've been told my whole life I need to be fighting my brain. I'm learning now that I need to love and work with my brain.
It's not an excuse, it's an explanation, and it's something that I'm going to continue working on for the rest of my life, and that's okay.
I'm smart, but ADHD makes focusing hard and hides my capabilities. If I'm given the chance, I can achieve more.
To meet this amazing community and learn more about how to support them, please visit howtoadhd.com/howto.
So I just wanted to reiterate, a lot of kids with ADHD feel shame. They feel that they are judged as being that kid that won't sit still. Their parents are the ones whose children never get invited to a birthday party because they're too disruptive. It's none of those things. It's a different way of needing to control the chemicals in your brain to be able to and use movement in order to be able to focus on information that's coming in. You know, I think sometimes about evolution. I'm a scientist. Think about evolution. We spent millennia learning from our people in our community. We didn't go to school. School was an invention in the Industrial Revolution. We learned by observing, by doing, by participating, by watching. And yet now we have an education system that is not necessarily built around the brain of our children, because a vast majority of them, their brains still work like that. And it's about 25% of the population are neurodiverse. So sitting in a classroom may work for some, but for some, it's not going to work. And we need to make sure that we adjust the environment for everybody to be able to be successful. And what if we don't? Well, unfortunately, the statistics are absolutely shocking. 30%, I think it's 33% of students with learning disabilities will drop out of school before getting a high school diploma. Because it's pretty difficult to get a high school diploma if you can't read well, or you don't have executive functioning skills, and you can't organize and plan your time and submit your essays, your reports on time. 62% of students with learning disabilities will be unemployed a year after graduation. And remember, these are children who are of average to gifted intelligence, but they don't necessarily have the skills, and the environment that they work in is not necessarily built for the way that their brains function. They get bullied more, they get left out more, they get stigmatized, and 50% of adolescent suicides involve a diagnosis of a learning disability. And I think if anything is going to wake us up, it needs to be that statistic. So we need to do things to support our kids. So what do we do at CDL? Well, we have a range of supports. We have programming. We do literacy, numeracy, social skills. Many of our children suffer with a deficit of social skills, not understanding the social cues, how close you stand to somebody when you're having a conversation. When is it appropriate to say something? When is that completely inappropriate? A lot of skills, and they have to be taught explicitly. So it's a different way of teaching a neurodiverse brain than it is a neurotypical. We have to teach our kids to advocate. That's a skill that many students don't have to learn, but our kids need to learn it, because this IEP, this need for accommodations is not going to go away. So they need to learn these skills, and they need to be able to ask for it when they go to work. They need to ask for it from their friends, all the things that they need to be able to be successful in life. We teach learning strategies, and we also teach employment skills, how to have a conversation with a boss, things like that we teach. So a wide range of programming. Some of it is subsidized. We have funders, particularly our literacy and numeracy programs. We can offer subsidies to families in need, so that we can serve as many kids as possible. Prior to the pandemic, we served about 200 students a year. Last year, we served 1,500 students, so a 6-fold increase. So the need is there. We also provide education and knowledge provision. We do workshops. We have an annual conference for educators, and I'm pitching it again. HDSB is very good at sending along staff to learn from experts in the field about what are the best strategies and supports for neurodiverse individuals in the classroom. We build community partnerships so that we can educate other community organizations so that everybody is working to support neurodiverse individuals. We've got a great website, and we also conduct research. So right now we're doing a research project into the effectiveness of group-based learning for neurodivergent children, and we're doing one on the unique experiences of Black diverse learners in our education system. And then we offer support. And this is free. So if you need us, you just call us, set us an appointment. You can speak to one of our staff who can help you with finding the right programs, can find you supports in the community, can help you talk through your psych ed, your IEP. We also go to school meetings and support parents, advocate for the needs of their children, and follow that the pathway, the problem-solving pathway, so that everybody's on the same page. And we also advocate, and this is where I want to take a few moments to kind of highlight where we're going as an organization. We will always continue to have these things, but we see our mission now as changing the narrative on neurodiversity. So what does that mean? Well, as the parent of a child with a learning disability, I can tell you I absolutely hate that name, okay? It is so stigmatizing. We have children who don't want to come to our programs because they had to come to the Learning Disabilities Association. It implies that there is something wrong with our kids and that we need to fix them. This is not old data. This is not old-fashioned, something out of the 1800s. This is from the Learning Disabilities Association of Canada. Learning disabilities result from impairments in one or more processes related to perceiving, thinking, remembering, or learning. Yeah, there are neurological processes that cause what we define as learning disabilities, but this is very much a deficit-based model. This says that it needs to be fixed and we need to fix them. Well, we know we can't. There's nothing that will fix neurological wiring. And so we can support and we can try and teach our kids to read in evidence-based ways that we know teach all readers how to read properly. But we are not going to fix a dyslexic child, adult, okay? But we need to get away from the stigmatizing of this medical-based model. And so what came next was the social model. that it's really all just due to the barriers that we put in place. And if we just remove those barriers, everything will be fine and we'll fix them that way. Okay? And there's a new paradigm. And it was brought out of the autism field, and it's being developed to support all people whose different way of thinking is based on neurobiology, and it's called the neurodiversity paradigm. And it basically says that we're all on a spectrum, we all think differently, and that is great. Because sometimes you need this set of skills and sometimes you need this set of skills. And if we only have a thin line of average in the middle, we will never get to be the best society can be. And Bloom at the bottom here says, neurodiversity may be every bit as crucial for the human race as biodiversity is for life in general. Who can say what form of wiring will be the best at any given moment? And this is the approach that we're trying to move to as we change our name to the Centre for Diverse Learners. We need to accept that our kids are normal. They're on a spectrum. They have different ways of thinking. And sometimes that will be beneficial for them and sometimes that will be a struggle. Just as sometimes my way of thinking as a neurotypical may help me in certain situations, and sometimes it really may not. And we need to take everybody's way of thinking and embrace them all. And so we're really trying to shift the narrative on this. And I wanted to just play you from a great organization made by Dyslexia out of the UK that really highlights this change in the narrative. You may notice a lot of very famous people.
If you're dyslexic, it's kind of your superpower. It's like the way that you think.
Our brains, they're wired to, I think, process information differently.
It's just the way that you see the world.
I don't think people do think the way I think.
And we're curious. We're creative.
The way I see the world might be different from somebody else, but that's valid. In fact, it's vital.
The imagination, the storytelling, the communication, the empathy, all these positives.
We can simplify things. We see the big picture.
In a world which is pretty competitive, I think to be able to look at it differently is a huge advantage.
Dyslexic minds have exactly the skills we need for the workforce of tomorrow.
My spelling makes people laugh. It makes me laugh, actually. And my reading, if I'm sight reading, it's a complete joke.
School was pretty difficult, to be honest. I wasn't a massive fan of the classroom.
I used to always hide in the store cupboard, but fortunately my English teacher knew that that was my spot.
It was hard for me to focus and concentrate in class.
I hated reading, I hated writing, like spelling in public, reading out loud.
Dyslexia can cause real challenges in traditional education. Memorizing lots of facts and figures, it can be difficult.
We're not teaching kids to think, we're teaching kids to pass exams.
If education is a challenge for a child with dyslexia, you need to understand how to educate them so that it isn't a challenge.
1 in 5 children suffer from dyslexia. That's 20% of the classroom. And yet, teachers aren't trained to recognise it.
I think it's vital that teachers are trained about dyslexics. Because the world is changing, and imagination is key to everything. And there's going to be a lot of kids whose potential are lost unless we train our teachers to effectively teach them.
Imagine a world where you've got, where you've got like a force of people who have this gift of dyslexia, educated in a way that supports them. It means anything's possible, It means anything is possible.
And so here I am, and I'd just like to ask you all, as we sit here as SEAC, and we advocate for accommodations and supports for our kids, to recognise that we need them to have it because we need their brains, we need their difference, we need to change the narrative that neurodiversity isn't something that our kids should be ashamed of. mental health issues aren't something that our kids should be ashamed of. We need to give them as much support as possible to help them do the things that our education system needs to do. And then when they leave, they will fly. So that's what we try to do at CDL. Does anybody have any questions? No. Okay. Oh, yep. I will close this down so it's not, if I can.
So thank you, Alison. That was a great presentation, and we were going to bring this up in the superintendent's report, but I think it's rather timely that we raise it now. Last spring, one of the questions from the public was around the name of the self-contained learning disabilities class, and asking for us to take that back and have a look at how we could perhaps rename it to respect the privacy and dignity of the students, but also perhaps to capture some of your thinking. So I'm going to turn it over to Conan, and he's going to talk about our process from here.
Thank you, Colette. Thank you, Alison. I'll just read, I prepared a statement. I'll just read the statement. So based upon parent, staff, and student feedback over the past few years, and as part of an ongoing commitment to create an inclusive and supported learning environment, we would like to begin a thoughtful exploration of potential name changes to some of our self-contained classes. Specifically, we are looking at learning disability and life skills classes at the elementary level. We want to ensure that the names of our classes accurately reflect the strength, resilience, and unique abilities of each student within these programs. We are committed to seeking input and consultation from a variety of stakeholders, including parents, students, educators, and of course, SEAC. If we do proceed in a name change, this will not impact or change the criteria or programming focus we have set for these classes. By engaging in this collaborative process, we aim to foster a sense of inclusivity, respect, and understanding for all. We are committed to engaging SEAC in this process throughout the winter, with the hope to have chosen names by the spring to institute in the fall. I will have two of my instructional program leaders who will begin the process of collecting feedback from the various stakeholders in January, so we have more to come in the new year.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that's a great step forward. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Well, at this point then, we're on item 2.3, and I'd just like to provide some information. So we have a process that takes place every January for the nominations of the positions of chair and vice chair, with a vote that takes place in the January meeting, at the beginning of the January meeting. So we will be sending out I think it's a Google form, asking if anybody is interested in either of the two positions. So just to give you a brief overview, obviously as the chair, responsible for making sure that the meeting runs according to the agenda and that everybody has their voices heard, and also helps with the vice chair and Superintendent Ruddock to set the agenda and make sure that we've captured things that you've indicated are of interest on the agenda. Katie, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of what your role is?
If the chair is not present, then I will hold the meeting.
Okay, great. So it's not a huge amount of work. Obviously, you have to be able to attend the meetings in person. Because that is one of the requirements of, I think, the board regulations is that the chair and the superintendent are present in the building. But if anybody would like to put forward their name, you're very welcome to. There will be a vote if there's multiple candidates in the January meeting. If there's only one candidate, then there will be an acclamation. Okay. So we're now at item 3.0, and there's a SEAC discussion question period. We do actually have one question from a member of the general public, so I am just going to raise that question. So at our last, or at the October the 3rd meeting, there was a discussion about a SEAC vote for prioritised learning disability students for board psychological assessments. Which meeting that did this vote take place? I'll just clarify on that one. That was part of the discussion that took place when the board made the decision to eliminate the grade 1 or the primary grades of the gifted classroom. So that took place, it would be before your time, Colette. It was with Mark Zonnefeld. There was not a vote that diagnoses or psych ed assessments would immediately transfer over to learning disabilities students, but there was an understanding that there were a large number of students with learning disabilities who could not get access to psychological psych ed testing time. And with the release of some of that lack of testing taking place at the primary, there was the hope that that would allow more students with learning disabilities to be tested to be able to achieve supports that they needed. We would have to go back and look at what the meeting that was, but we can go back, that, as I say, that's 3 years ago. I don't know, we'd have to find it. But, yeah.
Yeah, so if I could just maybe add a little bit there, I think, so Alison is referring to the special education review that was conducted in 2017 to 2018, I believe. And not that the elimination of gifted testing occurred, but that the emphasis on the problem-solving pathway and putting forward students where there's a concern or a struggle, and then there's a process through which that concern is discussed, assessed, and problem solved. So just a clarification there, but it does create more space for assessments of a wide range of needs, because one of the issues that came to light in that special education review was that the nomination process that was in place at that point in time for primary gifted consumed a vast amount of time of a small psychology team. And by pursuing the problem-solving pathway process, it created space for the psych team to do other types of assessments to support a diverse range of learners. Those reports, there are 3, are on our board's website, and they can be found on the Special Education Program Service Review page.
Thank you, Colette, for clarification. Kate, Catherine, Kate.
Hi, I do not want to run this off the rails, so I'm going to keep this brief, and I've already forwarded some information to Colette about this, which we will discuss on Thursday. But the reality is that parents in schools are being told that they may not be assessed at primary. Not a parent, many parents are being told by the certs, by the principals, by the teachers, that they will not be assessed before CCAT. They are told outright no assessments before grade 4 unless there is an extreme behavioral issue in the classroom or they seek private assessment. We have written documented evidence that this is the message that is going to parents, that they may not get assessment, even if the teacher agrees that the child is showing traits of giftedness and needs supplementation in the classroom. They are still being told that board policy is that these children will not be assessed. So if board policy is that they need to go through the problem-solving pathways, the message needs to be getting to these certs and these principals and these teachers, because right now they are telling parents nothing. They get nothing until CCAT. That is what is being told to parents.
Yeah, thanks for that information, Kate. We certainly emphasize the problem-solving pathway, and all of our CERT learning sessions, which occur on a monthly basis, we really promote the information that's in our special education plan and all the things that we've talked about here at SEAC. We have 9,000 employees, and so certainly when the message is not heard accurately or not relayed accurately, it's certainly something that we do want to follow up on. So I'm happy to work with you and make sure that where you've got examples of the message being relayed inaccurately, we can work with those schools. But we are being very clear and very explicit in our training sessions for CERTs, for administrators, on what our process is.
Can I ask a follow-up question for that? In terms of students, we have a flawed system anyway. In that, in order to get a diagnosis of some of these exceptionalities, we need to go through a psych ed. Some just require a doctor, which you can go free of charge and get a diagnosis, but some, such as giftedness, learning disabilities, require a psych ed, which is very, very expensive for parents. For students who are in high school, will they get a psych at a high school level? How do students really access that pathway? Do they have to be failing? If they're having to work a lot harder, will the school look at that? Or is it basically once you're out of elementary, you're kind of on your own?
Yeah, great question, Alison. Certainly the vast majority of our psychoeducational assessments are conducted in elementary because we emphasize that early identification, that's small I and big I, identification and intervention. But it's not to say that everyone is caught per se in that process in the early years. Sometimes those learning the challenges can emerge in high school where students have masked them better, or some circumstances change where some learning challenges emerge. So this school resource team structure exists in high school as well, and the problem-solving pathway applies there just into the same degree as it does in elementary. And so a possible outcome of that process could still be a psychoeducational assessment. It just is more rare because we tend to emphasize and find it more in the younger grades, but certainly still is a potential outcome. We don't have any policy or practice that would prevent us from doing a psychoeducational assessment in high school. But I'd add that there's also a wider range of resources in secondary to support students, whether it is that well-being or mental health side, and or whether there's some other barriers getting into this in the way of the student success. So we have student success teachers, we have guidance counselors, we have a social worker. There's a different type of team in high school. Special education is one avenue, but there are other ways that we support students who are struggling.
Kate.
So, and again, I know we're going to have this conversation on Thursday, but what is the board position on CERTs advising parents to seek private evaluation? Because I personally find it really upsetting from an equity perspective when we have CERTs telling parents to seek private evaluation in order to receive services, and it's happening.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, Kate, and I really appreciate you pointing that out because it is not a practice that the board supports. It's not a practice that the board recommends, much like tutoring. we take a position as a general rule that we don't recommend tutors or promote tutors because really that's the service model of the board. And so CERTs shouldn't be suggesting to parents to seek a private assessment, both from an equity perspective, but also because it is a service that we provide. The reality is we do have a wait list. So depending on the type of assessment, the wait list can be approximately a year. So our speech and language assessments, they're shorter assessments. And so the wait time is not as long for a speech and language assessment, but for a psychoeducational assessment, in all likelihood, the wait time is a year. But we don't recommend or promote by policy or practice that people seek outside assessments. So we can take that back to our CERT networking and emphasize that for all of our frontline staff in schools.
Are there any other questions at this time? Nope. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 4.1, the superintendent's report.
Well, you set us up so nicely for our one item, and that looked very planned, but it wasn't. So we will be bringing that renaming work back to SEAC in the new year. And just one other piece is I'd like to welcome Trustee Zhang to SEAC. Trustee Bryden has moved on to another board committee. And in his place, we now have Trustee Zhang, and we're pleased to have you with us. Thank you.
Great. So we're on item 4.2, association reports. Do any associations have any information they'd like to share with SEAC? Amanda.
Hi, so bear with me. I'm not usually the speaker here. I have stuff from Autism Ontario. So Journey to Adulthood overview. Journey to Adulthood is a 90-minute virtual presentation that introduces key topics. In the transition from youth to adults, it's open to parents and caregivers of youth ages 12 to 18 who are in the Access OAP program. This happens Tuesday, December 5th. I guess that doesn't make any difference at this point then. So I'll move on. Rad Dads. Join us each month to meet with other dads, male caregivers, and transgender non-binary folks. This casual setting allows you to socialize, share your experiences, or simply sit back and listen. That happens Monday, December 18th from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Registration is open at autismontario.com. And then we have Awesome Moms. So similar to Rad Dads, join us each month to meet other moms, female caregivers, transgender, non-binary folk. And this casual setting allows you to socialize, share your experiences, or sit back and listen. This happens Thursday, December 21st from 7:30 to 9, and that is also on the Autism Ontario website. And then finally, we have the World Autism 2024. So you can check that out at celebratethespectrum.com. There's plenty of information on that as well. That is all for me.
Thank you, Amanda. Any other associations? Okay, I'll add in then for the Centre for Diverse Learners. Just want to let everybody know that our early bird pricing for our 13th annual Solutions for Learning conference will be on, I think it's January the 15th. We have some amazing speakers lined up on neurobiology, the implementation of the science of reading, Marion Small on math. We have AI for neurodiverse students, as well as streams looking at numeracy, literacy, social emotional skills, and also the intersectional identities. So we have some speakers on the differences in autism and ADHD in girls, ADHD and neurodiversity in the Asian community. So lots of different exciting things and learning opportunities. I also want to highlight we are launching our search for our 3 new Y2Y ambassadors, our youth-to-youth ambassadors. This is a volunteer program with an honorarium, which where our youth help organize events for other youth and acts as ambassadors to speak about their lived experience as diverse learners. So if you know somebody between the age of 15 and 29 who might make a good speaker, who likes to share their experience, please ask them to sign up on our website. They will be fully supported and receive lots of training. And it looks great on a resume. So lots of opportunities there for our youth-to-youth ambassadors. Any other associations? Okay, item 4.3, we'll turn it over for the trustees report.
Trustee Baxter had to leave, so she's asked me to read this on behalf of trustees. They do not have a formal report this evening, but on behalf of all trustees, she would like to sincerely thank all the committee members for their commitment to SEAC and wish everyone a happy and restful holiday season.
Lovely. Item 4.4, committee reports. At this time, I'll go through the standing committees, and if they have any updates, that would be great. Accessibility and Coordinating Committee, Evelyn.
Hi there. There hasn't been a meeting. There's one actually coming up next week.
Okay, great. So the Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Steering and Advisory Committee, that's a big mouthful. Kate.
Yes, well, I had my work done for me because Michelle presented today. But I will say that it's a wonderful experience to be on that committee. The students, in particular the elementary student, at our last meeting, really brought a wonderful perspective, and I think it's amazing to have students participating actively, especially even to that elementary level in these committees, to bring their perspective. And you've already seen the report, so I don't have anything to add other than that. I believe one of the things that was a big discussion during that was how we get the child and youth workers and the social workers sort of more known within the school committee, so that, or the school community, so that when the time comes that students or parents do need that higher level of support, that they already have a level of comfort and familiarity with those types of workers, with the social workers and the child and youth workers.
Thank you, Kate. I don't think Melissa is here tonight. No. Okay, so we will wait for our Indigenous Advisory Council report. So we're now on item 5.0, which is the next agenda or order paper. We've mentioned that there is going to be a vote on the chair and vice chair. And then if there are any other things that people would like to see on the agenda, please do let us know and we'll work those in. I know Autism Ontario is going to be presenting later, I think in February.
So if I could add that we had queued up our blind and low vision team to present in January, but we just got a request from an association to join SEAC, who represents blind and low vision students and youth. So I'm hoping that we can move out our staff presentation until perhaps February, which will be their first meeting, so that they can be a part of SEAC when we present. So if that's all right, we'll move that presentation to February. And we also have in January Superintendent Nagoy attending. She is our Superintendent of Finance, and she will be coming to have some preliminary conversations with SEAC around some of our forecasted budget pressures and start to gather input as we're starting to head into the budget planning stages around some efficiencies in our board and more specifically in special education.
Okay, we will see what that holds. Okay, so we've now worked our way through the agenda. We're at 6.0. It is 8:20, and so just before we adjourn, I would like to wish everybody a happy holiday. I hope whatever festivity you're celebrating, or even if you're not, just wish you a happy holiday with time with friends and family, a little bit of rest and recuperation, and look forward to seeing everybody back in January. So until then, happy holidays, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:20.